Well, hey everybody, this is Don from Wizard Tower Games, and we are live. Today is Tuesday, the 16th of January, and Tim Kask is scheduled to be with us tonight. Tim right now is a little tied up. He'll be here as soon as he can, so trust me, he's on his way. Um, Hold on one second here. Let me go ahead and put this on. Hello. No worries. Tell him take his time. I'm holding the fort down until he gets here. All right. Thank you. Bye bye. That was Tim's lovely wife calling. Let me know that he's running a little bit late, but he is on his way. So I'm going to hold off until the main subject when Tim gets here. One of the main subjects that we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about half races in gaming. You know, like half elf and half orc and such. And Tim's going to give his opinions on that in Tim's own perspective and Tim's own way. And I'm also going to go ahead and kind of dive into it. But in the meanwhile, um, let's talk a little bit about races within gaming and classes. You know, with the advent of the Lost Adventures of Gary Con coming out, we have added two classes. We've added the Witch and the Proctor. For those of you who don't know what they are, or for those of you who think you know what they are, Michael, hello. Thank you for tuning in. Tim will be here shortly. In the Tim and Don's version of the Witch and Proctor, basically, what makes the Witch is my favorite, but what makes the Proctor unique is the Proctor is sort of like a religious warrior, crusader, if you will, but with a very unique spin. The Witch, the Witch is a spellcaster. But what makes a witch very unique as a spellcaster is, unlike magic users and sorcerers and such, the witch doesn't use a spell book. What a witch does is they use their wand. So without their wand, a witch cannot cast spells. And what happens is a witch uses a thing called a pensieve in order to charge magically up. So the pensieve can be something as simple as a small crystal. It can be an ornate necklace, maybe something they wear on their watch. I doubt it's or a watch they wear on their wrist. I doubt it's a watch. So the spell pensieve is what basically stores the magical energy, the magic, and all that, and they need the wand to execute that. And I just thought that that was kind of a unique play on a class that you can utilize. Plus, witches tend to be more attached to nature, if you will. And although every character, every player can play their PC the way they want to, when you take a look at the artwork, as an example, in the Lost Adventures of Gary Con, and you see what the witch looks like in there, or even if you take a look at the witch in the role-playing game that Wizard Tower is getting ready to put out called the Open Worlds role-playing game, the witch is like crone, like they're older, they're old women, more of the classic witch, which no pun intended by saying witch, but we're also going to talk about that a little bit because that was Tim's idea. So RPG Grandma, thanks for coming on in, listening in as Car Wars at home. I take it where you're at is like Michigan. You guys are packed with snow, sub-zero temperatures. My wife just got notified tonight, day 2 in a row, that her school closed down due to extremely low temps. I think Tina, my wife, said that they have to have at least -20 in order to do that, and we're hitting that easily tonight. I think as of this morning it was -36 without wind chill. That's ambient. That's crazy cold. But basically, that's what we are introducing in the Lost Adventures of Gary Con. We're introducing 2 new types of character classes that you can play with OD&D. You can play with AD&D, 2nd edition, 3.5, 5th edition, wherever you want. And, while we're waiting for Tim to get here, I'd really like to know kind of like what are your guys' opinion of like races and classes. Are there any classes that you don't see in gaming? RPG Grandma, no, just some of the worst. Yeah, we got some pretty bad ones here. They don't slow down here in Michigan. It's like that's why on 94 you always see Michigan always has the 150 car pilots because people drive like idiots. But Jim, thank you for tuning in. Greetings back to you. Um, classes in gaming. Now, does anyone have any class ideas that they'd like to see in a role-playing game that just are not out there, that just simply no one's done yet? Like I said, me and Tim did the Proctor for Lost Adventures of Gary Con, and I'm going to be using the Proctor and the Witch also in Open World's role-playing game. What other classes, anyone, if you're watching? With me, like as an example, in Open World's role-playing game, I've got the Proctor, I've got the Witch, I got a class called the Inquisitor. And if you took a paladin, like a dark paladin, but you kind of crossed him with a crusader and gave him some limited magical use, but the magic is sourced very uniquely, I think that's kind of what you'd get with the Inquisitor. They're kind of like a religious. They're always trying to hunt down and do away with what they deem is bad and evil. And just because maybe that character deems that as bad or evil does not mean it really is. The Inquisitor is actually a really hard class to play because they're kind of a nasty being, if you will. New class called the curmudgeon. Jim, I wonder. Jim has an insight to a couple of things. Jim, you know that artwork that I showed you for the player's guide for Open Worlds, the one that looks like someone that we both know pretty well. I wonder if we could make a class called the curmudgeon. That'd actually be pretty cool. Just a fun class. Jim, you started this, so I'll let. Here's Tim.
3 o'clock this afternoon. I looked up there and said, yep, 8 o'clock tonight. He'll call me at quarter of 8.
You're live. I've been holding down the fort without you.
Well, okay. I've been very busy.
You have been.
See that new shelf there?
Yes, wow. What'd you do with all the stuff that was on the old ones?
Oh, some of it's going back there. Some of it's going over there to the other one. I'm rearranging my entire printed material. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Put all my humor in one place and my game rules in another, and my books that I like to read. And good literature.
I kind of broke everybody in. I didn't touch half races until you got here because I want to discuss with you. Mainly what I was talking about right now was new character classes. I was telling you a little bit about the Witch, and I was telling you a little bit about the Proctor. And I was asking about anybody have new ideas, and Jim Wampler had an idea for a class or a character class called the Curmudgeon.
No.
Oh, Jim.
No.
You shot it down. Oh, come on. A cross between a sage and Burgess Meredith's character in Rocky movies. Come on, Tim.
No, I'd rather be a cross between a sage and Andy Rooney.
There you go.
Came a little rant at the drop of a quill.
Well,
anyway.
Okay. Yeah. Just to kind of give a little bit of history on this. Me and Tim was talking a while back, and I was telling Tim about one of my classes in my game. He was like, "Oh, why are you doing that class? It's been overused. I have an idea," which is what the Proctor came about. And we started talking about other things. And Tim, if I get it right, you're not a fan of like half elves, half orcs, half races in games, correct?
I don't like half anything.
Why?
In terms of species.
I'd love to hear it.
I accept half elves because of Tolkien. You can't deny Tolkien's influence. Okay, fine. Aragorn married an elf and they had little babies with pointy ears, whatever. We didn't have to go there.
Yep.
But half anything else I find abhorrent.
Okay.
Half orc. All right. Now, I don't mean to get salacious here.
Sure.
But the first thing that I thought of is what? The product of a rape? Are the chromosomes even compatible?
Okay, you bring something up that was really unique because actually, when I was a young man, we were playing D&D, and one of the guys, my friend, if his name was Lance. His mom heard him using a half elf, and she made the comment, in your game, how do elves and humans interact? What do you mean half? And because she was kind of listening, and then we were in a part where there's like a village that was kind of attacked, and even she asked us, she goes, "Wait a minute, are you guys playing a game where a character can assault another character?" And that was the end of that. It was game over for D&D at her house over that.
Well, and to show you the other side of that coin, there was a group here in Cincinnati. A couple of them are dead now. That used to play the most heinous, the most politically incorrect adventures. They were constantly turning each other not only into the other sex, but then changing their orientation. And I mean, that was their fun. That's fine. The group eventually devolved because members died and what have you. But
Mm-hmm.
that was their thing. Now, I certainly wouldn't make them the poster children for a pro D&D campaign.
Yeah.
Hi, have your precious little boy turned into a girl who likes butch women.
Oh, so what they were doing is they were basically just being vicious in
Oh, it
their.
was that was the way this group played. They stabbed each other in the back every chance they got. They did heinous things to each other. Yeah, you're right. Wampler's right. They were a bunch of the old Ralph Parther crew,
Mm-hmm.
and they were the anti-exemplar of role playing, and I've just always had a problem with half. It
Mm-hmm.
seems to me, in my many years of observation, that most people want to be half something so they can be better than a full human.
Well,
It's a
every
subtle form of min maxing. I want
yeah.
to be a half orc, so I have a maximum strength of 21.
Well, yeah, it's just like people who go, "Well, I want to be a half elf." Why do you want to be a half elf? Well, I want to be a half elf fighter magic user. Well, we know why they're doing it.
Yeah, they're min maxing,
Yeah,
and
is
I don't like
exactly
min
that.
maxing, and I never have. That's why I have absolutely no use for probably 80% of the classes, player character classes
Hmm.
that are available to play now.
Hmm.
5 or 6 different types of a crusader. What?
Yeah.
Crusader's a crusader is a crusader. Doesn't matter what he's crusading about, he's going to act the same. Only difference
Well,
is what he's crusading about. What's the big deal?
well, that takes away from, I think, the original whole thing with D&D was originally. I mean, you could be, a cleric, you could be a fighter, you could be a magic user. Well, then they introduced the illusionist, and then they introduced the sorcerer, and now they've got.
Well, not sorcerer. That came a while later.
Yeah,
How's that
that's what I'm
right
saying.
left?
I'm talking about they've added, like they have progressively started adding more and more classes, and they almost become um, a subclass of a dominating class. But they do that also, I think, though, and this is another thing I'd love to have your feedback on is, don't you think that, like, the designers of D&D now are doing that just because that the mentality among gamers now is like and you're far before me, but even I started in 77, and I remember the whole thing with, you start off as a magic user, you're lucky, man, you're hoping you get 4 life points, hit points,
Yeah,
and you are just like trying to survive, and you're scratching along, and then sooner or later you get up to like fourth, fifth level, and it's like you're almost you're finally getting your feet underneath you at fourth or fifth level.
yeah. Well, yeah, you
Whereas,
can throw a fireball at fifth.
yeah, and then now what they're
Every
doing
wizard's
is,
dream.
yeah, and now what they're doing is characters can literally start off really the equivalent nowadays at first level of a fifth or sixth level character in D&D or OD&D.
Well, I had an individual that watches my videos send me 3 examples of AI created Um, a complicated, probably tragic history. No, I don't need to deal with. No offense, I don't want to deal with probably tragic history of a half orc. He was bullied until he got his growth, and then he became a bully. And whoa, yeah, no, we don't need to do that. The character classes that they have for 5e are ludicrous. Now, my friend Joe plays a dragonborn that I would
Yeah.
not let in my game when I ran a game at his house. I would
Yeah.
not let him use it. I said, no, I don't, I don't know them. I don't know exactly what all they do. I know it's too much and it's a min max thing. You're dragonborn, so dragons don't scare you as much, and wyverns are, yeah, that's min maxing. It's taking an edge. If you want to give somebody an edge, give them an artifact.
Yeah. Give them magic items. Give them something
Yes,
unique.
it gives them an edge against this species or that species or whatever the hell species it might be.
Well, it's like the theory of being a DM and your players are getting ready to run into something that you know damn well that on their own they're not going to be able to survive. So what do you do as a DM? You throw them a bone, like you maybe give them that magical sword or that magical weapon or a
Well,
magical something
sometimes
to help them out sometimes, if
depends
they
on the
know how to
group.
use it and if they can figure it out.
Depends on the group. If they've
Hmm.
been playing dumb up to that point, I don't necessarily feel impelled to
Yeah,
throw
I
them a
agree.
bone.
I think
I think if they don't listen to me when I say, now explain to me again exactly what it is you're planning to do. If they don't take that for the hint that they ought to rethink their plan and they blunder ahead anyway, well, then dice take the hindmost.
hmm yeah.
Got to be consequences for bad actions. If you do
hmm
something stupid, you should die. Now, the fact
Well,
that there's 3 saving throws in 5e before you're actually, am I really dead?
is it 3?
I've I've been told that they can roll 3 times to see if they're really dead. Now, I think it was Luke Gygax that told me that when he was
Hmm.
enormously frustrated and not having been able to kill any of the characters in the adventure he'd just run that richly deserved killing.
Is there anybody watching this video right now? I notice we got 10 people currently watching online. Is there anybody that's very familiar with 5e that can confirm the how many saving throws before a character ultimately croaks? Let's see if but Jim Wampler says everyone wants to play Spock. Half race characters should be rare, and if a player wants one, they should work for it. Like play one of the parents first and actually play it out. That's legit. Um, Michael Stronghold says, EOD, I wouldn't be sad if it was only humans because there's no reason whatsoever, or whatever race you are playing isn't just a type of person. But if you're going to have races, I don't see the harm in half orcs. I think and I'll just proffer my opinion on this. In my game, in the open worlds role playing game we're getting ready to release, there are no half races. That was legit. That was even far back. Actually, I called that was back in the Lance incident when his mom said, "Not playing D&D no more, Lance. You're done." You know. But the thing is I think that if a GM wants to have it, go ahead. But I'm kind of with Tim on this one, and I'm not doing it just because he's sitting, proverbially video next to me. Is I legitimately believe that the half race thing with character classes and playing the game, I think there's questions you have to ask yourself is, how did that half orc come about? I mean, was it a child of assault? Do you really want to introduce that into your game? Is this, was it just some human male fell in love with an orc female and they wandered off together into the sunset? I don't know. Hell, man, it's D&D. But you were there at the start. Can you kind of give some insight with Gary and Dave and such, and what the whole purpose of the half races were? I heard
We
things
didn't
about
have them.
Gary.
We didn't have it. There was no half anythings at first.
Well, but Gary allowed it. I heard that Gary was very human centric.
Oh,
Very very.
Gary was one of the most humanocentric game designers I've ever known. He actually did not he did not comprehend why anybody would want to be anything except a big, bold, muscly superhero Conan type. He didn't understand, he didn't want wizards taking over the campaign, so he made them weak.
Yeah.
And clerics were kind of, yeah, okay, yeah, they can smash and they can say prayers and, okay, Friar Tuck, etc. And that was the three.
Mm-hmm.
And I know for a fact that we resisted all that at the beginning in the fanzines. See, the fanzines were kind of the blood pressure indicator on the hobby in our first couple of years.
Yeah.
What was going on in the fanzines? Is it a good idea? Maybe we'll improve it and put it into the next whatever. It's a stupid idea. Let's squash it right now. And so there are far more stupids than there were brilliants. And so we spent a lot of time going around stamping out fires.
Yeah.
Spell points being the worst, multi-classing and being another one. So they sprang up early and we said no, because they were clearly a case of min-maxing. Now, let's go back to that half orc. Oh,
Sure.
gee, I'm a half orc. I can have 21 strength. Fine. You can't be any smarter than an 8.
Yeah.
And now we get into something that I addressed the other night about when people want to do something, they're bringing in metagaming into the. No, you don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
What? Yeah, you don't know how to do that. You've got an 8 intelligence.
Yeah.
You blunder into things and smash them.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna, and every point they go above, start them at a 9, and every point they go above 18 in strength, take off an intelligence point. They want to be a 21, now they're a 6. And now they can barely walk without drooling, and they have trouble fastening their buttons.
Mm-hmm. See, that's something that I'm a very big fan of. I think the idea behind, if a player wants to do something that is obviously going to be unbalancing to the game, what you do is you make them pay for it heavily in other
Absolutely.
ways.
Absolutely. If he's going to claim to be a 21 strength and have all these extra hit points for his robust vitality, etc., fine. He's dumber than a rock and can be fooled by the first cute anything that walks by and tickles him under the chin. He's got no wisdom, no intelligence. Fine.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the one who created orcs as a race.
Who was?
Well, whoever the first ones who made them into a recognizable race was evidently Tolkien.
But what about at TSR though back in the day? Who were the ones who wanted to bring in half orcs?
None of us.
Really?
We all saw that as anathema.
Interesting.
We spent a lot of time shooting clay pigeons out of the air. Ideas for half-baked player character classes. That's a lot of what we did in the fanzines. No, that won't work. Here's why. Did you forget about this? And we just find something in the written rules that would crock it. And we spent a lot of time crocking it. Ideally, in Gary's mind, in Dave's mind, in mine, and many of the other old timers, it's a game about interactions. The main characters are humans.
Mm-hmm.
They can be dwarves. There can be elves. That's what NPCs are for. Now, I'm not without sin. I played a dwarven character for a while. In fact, it was a dwarven pre-gen handed to me that hooked me on the game, in that what happened afterwards led me to buy the 3 little books.
Mm-hmm.
But having said that, I allow dwarves. Not happy about it. I allow half elves, and that's because of Tolkien. Everybody loved Rhys Davies or whatever it was, the guy that played Gimli.
Well, okay. I like kind of a concept. I don't know if you ever saw the show, but there is a TV show that was on for 4 or 5 seasons called Carnival Row.
Yeah, love that show.
You love it. And
Oh
what I
yeah.
liked about it was that's exactly what it was. All the non-human races were viewed as vile, and they kind of took history with the way we treated some some races, and they put a spin on it. And I
Mm-hmm.
loved how they took, like, the pixies and such, and they just kind of made them like for lack of a better word, they weren't subhuman because they weren't human, but they were a lesser being.
Yeah, absolutely. Lesser
Yeah,
intelligence, lesser wisdom,
yeah.
more
Now,
chaotic, subject to whim.
yeah.
Um, okay, now Michael says there are plenty of other ways to justify their existence, but if you do play it that way, it makes orcs monstrous. Well, big surprise.
Hmm.
The only place you find orcs in first edition or the old books is on the monster table.
Yeah. And you mentioned the fanzines, because my good friend Tom Verrolt runs a Star Frontiers fanzine. And it's interesting listening to him talk about his fanzine, because he has a thing like every Friday, like he has a thing called Fanzine Friday, where he kind of does a recap of things. And it's interesting hearing his feedback that people do even with the various alien races within Star Frontiers. You know, because Star Frontiers, that was kind of the bread and butter, was the Vrusk and all the different races.
Yeah,
Whereas
there weren't half Rusk.
no, there wasn't. And that's why I wanted to bring up with you, was that because that's one of the interesting things, though, that you listen to him talk. Tom will tell you about, he'll tell you about the races, but there was no half Rusk. So why in D&D do we,
Chromosomes don't match up. That's all you
yeah,
need to know.
yeah, because they were an alien. So I guess how would and I'm interested to hear from people there in chat, because we're starting to get quite a few people watching us now. Thank you, by the way, for everybody who's tuning into this tonight. I encourage you to kind of ask him questions, ask me questions. We'll be glad to. Hey,
Is that my good deer in the headlights?
that's right. By the way, your wife is a dear. She called me tonight to let me know that you were busy, that you'd be shortly.
Yeah, I was in the
Shortly.
shower. I missed time. Like I said,
So,
at 3 o'clock, I looked up and says, "Oh yeah, 8 o'clock." And then at
yep.
8:15, I decided I needed to take a shower because I haven't had one all day. And been moving shit and carrying shit around in my basement all day. And
Tim, you get a hard pass. You turned 19 the other day.
yeah, I
So,
did. Times
yeah.
7. No, more than that. I don't
Easily
know.
three and a half, three and a quarter, 3.35, something like that.
Oh,
You're,
only. Oh, okay.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
hey.
well, if I was having a jubilee, it'd be my diamond jubilee.
Yep. Now, RPG Rama says, now in half races as a kid, we went love or violence, created them. As an adult, of one of the above, but move more towards a sci-fi magic-based genetic manipulation, as they are elfkin as the elves. So,
Okay, if you're gonna, I got no problem with any player's campaign who wants to use some kind of science as an underpinning,
mhm,
because you got to have some kind of underpinning, or it's just literally chaos.
mhm,
I mean, there's even fantasy has underpinnings,
yeah,
and if tonight, I don't care what gets done in a sci-fi game,
mhm,
because that could have been done in a lab.
true.
But I have a hard time figuring out what a half orc would look like, sired by that guy with the white face in Lord of the Rings.
True.
To whom did he do it?
Well, that's another interesting question that I bring up, is this: is you have half orcs, which are half human, half orc. What do you do if someone says, "Oh, you allow half orcs to your campaign?" Yes, I want to be half orc, half elf.
Nope.
But that's the whole thing. I mean, how do you justify that with your players if you are going to allow half races in your game?
Well,
I know you can
it's
say
got to be
simply
half
no.
human. That's the bottom
No.
line. It's got to be half human,
Mm-hmm.
or it's got to be full elf, full dwarf.
Michael Stronghold says, if my 7-year-old asked me where half orcs come from, I'd tell him that evil wizards made them.
Yeah, okay, that's fine for 7-year-olds.
Yeah, but the thing is also, it's kind of like how Tolkien did it. Orcs were created by sermon.
Yeah,
Or
out of the mud.
yes,
They're mud creatures.
yes. RPG Grandma says, "Are lying to the elfkin that they're part elf? No, they're manipulating to make the humans more pleasing to them." So RPG Grandma, so I understand this right. What you're saying is that what they're doing is they're lying because they're trying to make it more palatable. Because that's kind of like an interesting that's just basically a story trope that would kind of help explain away or help explain into the trope or the use of that. That's actually interesting to me.
Well,
Um,
what I'm thinking about is the predilection for backstories.
mhm.
All right, everybody wants to come to the table with a backstory.
Okay.
How are you going to explain away that backstory?
Well, I
And
mean,
I don't like backstories to begin with. I don't think you should even write a backstory in your character until you've survived 3 or 4 adventures at least.
mhm,
All right, I don't think you're worthy of one. Hi, I'm
mhm,
Clem. My dad was a farmer, and this is his hoe. You know, that's how you start out at level 1. And that's all the backstory you need.
mhm.
Don't need something about how your grandpa was wronged by the Duke. I mean, nah, don't need that. That kind
But
of crap can come up later in the campaign, but it's got to be an organic part.
yeah, because the thing is if but you do believe though that GMs would need backstories for their campaigns or their games, correct?
Well, yeah, you got to have a rationale for
Yeah.
going out and going down underground to look for. You got to have a reason to go down and look.
But wouldn't the argument though, Tim, be that actually having characters that create very brief or simple backstories would be helpful to the GM because then they can manipulate that or utilize that to help create?
Never needed them. Never needed them, and to the extent to which some people go now is ludicrous. Now,
Mhm.
there's a game from Australia about ducks.
I wonder if Polly Kidd might know.
Um,
Polly Kidd's from Australia.
Duck Nation, or anyway, when you create a character in that game, your backstory is limited to 3 sentences. That's it. It's all you get. Now I could live with that because if they start giving me compound sentences, I just put a period at some place where it should be and cut off the rest. I'm the old editor after all. Too wordy.
That's true.
Now make something out of what I left you. You're not, making up a backstory. I really think it's a waste of time when you're starting out with a brand new player character, level 1.
Hmm.
It's a waste of time. I mean, come on. Would you go on a dungeon? Would you go on a funnel in Dungeon Crawl Classics and write a backstory for the 12 or 15 character sheets that you name when you go in, knowing that at least half of them are going to die?
Hmm.
No, you wouldn't. This is Bob. That's Joe. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter beyond he lives. Okay, now you can make him a 3 sentence backstory.
So what you're saying is that the backstory, as a player evolves and gains levels, they can add to that backstory, be more creative, and that way they
Perhaps, yeah,
earn their backstory.
perhaps. A good example would be catching the DM by surprise when you're looking to undo a trap about how your great uncle was a trapper and he
Hmm.
told you all about these tripwire mechanisms.
Yeah,
You look at him as a DM and go, okay, roll a die. And you're
yeah.
gonna
You're
give him
trying to you're trying to get around my little thing here.
you're gonna give him a 4 or 5 pip just for clever.
Uh huh.
Okay, you're clever. Okay, you're good at tripwires now. All right, fine. That's how backstories get added to. Usually is bullshit explanations on why you ought to be able to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. A lot of people will also create carefully crafted backstories because they're going to try to use that against you because they want to be able to explain their special knowledge with something.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Like I was raised by two mages, and they gave me. It's like no, they didn't give me nothing. No, they did. You know,
I don't care who raised you. I
yeah,
don't care if it was wolves.
yeah,
Okay, Remus.
exactly. Now, Michael Stronghold says, "I get it, though. I prefer all humans. Different races are kind of built on tropes that, for the most part, can be expressed through a human. I do understand why people like having templates. Um, I mean, I can see why people like having templates, but to me, when I sit down and play D&D, I'm playing D&D because I want to be original. I want to be creative. I don't want a template. I mean, I know a lot of people do, but
No, here's a good half for you. Person shows up at your table, says, "Here's my character." Puts out a figure that's about 3.5 feet tall. I'm a half gnome. Whoa, how'd that happen? Half gnome?
yeah,
Okay, they're this big, and
yeah,
okay. So yeah, and again, we're dealing with the stereotypes or the tropes that the old mythology established long before D&D.
hmm
We've changed a lot of them. Elves were not; they didn't look like Legolas
yeah,
or any of those hot babes. They were little mischievous sprites, 3, 4 feet tall. They played tricks. They soured your milk. They switched babies on you, and gnomes were much more secretive, and the various mythologies that D&D was scraped from has a lot of different ways you can take those non-human races, but to make one into a player character, nah. The only reason we've had it races being a template of expected behavior. That's a good point.
hmm
Orcs are not known for tenderheartedness.
hmm
All right. Gnomes aren't known for friendliness.
hmm
And okay, that's why we have the different races and we delineate between them. So you, as a player, can have a reasonable expectation of how this meeting is likely to go, or at least what you can do to make the meeting go well, or try to do to make the meeting go well.
Well, like me and you were talking about a week and a half ago on the telephone, we were talking about witches. Remember? And I was telling
Oh
you
yeah,
about the
witches
witch,
all
and
look like they're trying out for the swimsuit edition now.
to use a phrase you said they all look like sukubai, and you're right. And I was saying this before you came on the video, but I was talking about the new one of the two classes we added to the Lost Adventures of Gary Con. One was a witch, and in my witch, when you look at the images that I drew of the witch, it's not this sexy, really, long nosed, fair skinned, beautiful woman. And I get it because they're kind of pulling off the famous Conan scene where he comes across the shaman witch in
Mhm.
the tent.
Yeah,
I
one scene in one.
I know,
You
I
know.
know, but I agree with you. I want the witch to be an old crone. I want her hunched over and dirty long nails and
Yeah,
you
because when
know,
I see witch, I don't make a rationale for good witch, bad witch.
yeah,
I assume
neither
witches
do I.
are bad.
Yeah,
Now, if I see some babe that slinks by smelling slightly of sulfur, I'm more likely to take her for a succubi than I am a
that's
witch.
right.
Now,
But the
there's hedge
nuances, though.
witches. All right. I used to always make a distinction on common practical magic, knowing herbs and knowing brewing and teas and infusions and stuff like that. That's what a hedge wizard or witch would be good at. Love potions, keep the
Mhm.
mice out of the barn, whatever. Um, but now, they've all become seductresses.
Well, you look at, and I actually did this right for Christmas. Is we were looking for a book for my youngest daughter Sarah, and we were at Barnes and Noble, and I wandered over to the D&D section like I do, and they literally have now a book for every damn thing you can think of. Watsy puts out, but the interesting thing was is when you went
Too
through
bad
all the.
none of them are any good, huh?
That's right. They're dumping them now in ollies. But the thing is, when you start scrolling through them and looking at the characters, all the characters, male and female, have one thing in kind. They're all very lean. They're very, very narrowed featured. the guys are all I don't want to use the word feminine, but they're
Well, I think they are. I
masculine
think
mixed
they
with.
all. I think all the artists turn towards some idealized Aryan
Yeah, I,
conception, or
I agree with you.
Aryan not being Nazis necessarily, but Scandinavian.
Yeah, very, and
They're
they're
all
very all
lean,
very
muscled
lean
Vikings.
featured.
You know,
But even
they're
the
all.
Vikings, even when you look at the WotC version of it, the WotC version, like I said, me and you would not qualify in modern day D&D as models in no way.
Of nothing.
I might be a troll or an ogre. They might think I'm a good model for, but not as a character, because it's just this really weird vision that they have for what a character needs to look at. And I'm kind of the opposite. I want the witch crone like. I want the healer, either male or female. They're more like like in my game, the healer is represented by a woman kind of kneeling over a fallen soldier, and it's an old woman, using her magic to kind
Oh,
of
I thought it was
heal.
a Valkyrie stealing his soul to go to Valhalla.
No, actually, I have a class called Valkyrie in my game. Has to be female. The stats are that. Um, RPG Grandma says something. She says dwarves are mostly male, as they were genetically engineered by humans and cloned in mostly male batches. And it was only a lot of sci-fi magic that few girls were created the latter. I think this goes with this one, Tim. Hold on. Let me go to our first one that we missed. RPG Grandma says, I went with the Elfkin idea based on Jack Vance's book, in which humans were slaves to various aliens, and aliens changed the humans to look more like them. Elves in my setting are colonists. Then let's go to this comment. Dwarves are mostly male, as they were genetically engineered by humans, cloned in mostly male batches, and it was only a
I
lot
don't.
of.
I'm sorry. I'm totally at a loss for where the justification is in that statement. I have never ever read, and I've read extensively in Northern and Western European mythology. I have never come across anything that would justify that.
I think she's talking about the writer Jack Vance.
Well, okay. Well, one Vance book. Okay, that's why
Yeah,
we put
I
lots
think
of
that's what
books in
she's
Appendix
doing.
10. We put
RPG
lots of
Grandma,
books
let me know, please. Let us know if that's what you're talking about, because I'm kind of guessing and putting
because
words
I'm
in your
trying to
mouth.
remember what Vance book that might have been.
Michael Stronghold says, I personally have played enough where I don't feel like I need them either. I just don't think you get out of providing some so people can learn. Michael, are you talking about just half races in general? Clarify that, please. And
Yeah,
then,
because I don't give them anything. Period.
yeah,
They learn to be a human.
RPG Grandma says, Elfkin can only breed with humans or elfkin. Real elves are rare now.
Okay,
RPG
if
Grandma,
that's the novel and the milieu that you choose to set your campaign in, fine. I
mhm,
great. All right. I don't choose to set a campaign in a single milieu
mhm.
because more often than not, you'll end up getting your butt bit.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you go historical, because somebody will pick it apart, like my my cenotes and stuff. Um,
Well, I think whenever you start bringing historical fiction into D&D, you run that risk that you're going to have that person at the table that's far more knowledgeable about the subject than you are,
well,
and
not
they're
if
going
I
to use
do
it
one.
against you.
I can guarantee you, if I do one, I'll have done damn near doctoral research on it, as I have on Central America.
And you know what? I'm not just kissing your ass on camera, but as well as I know you now, I can guarantee when he says this, people, he will do his research on you.
When I wrote the Mouse Adventures, I spent weeks crawling around on my stomach getting a 6-inch perspective.
And I'll tell you what,
I'm very serious about
he's not
my
joking.
research.
To clarify here,
We're going to print one.
I have the work here. He sent it to me. He's right. He crawled on the freaking floor to understand the perspective of being a mouse. How's that for dedication to a freaking module in a game for the players?
And then I got artwork that was off from the perspective of the mice.
Yes.
Looking
Very,
up
very cool artwork.
at everything. Looking up at everything. Everything's bigger. Everything's more intimidating.
RPG Grandma says, I borrowed the kin idea from Jack Vance. I deviated big time from traditional D&D. I know. Hey,
No,
RPG Grandma, go ahead, Tim.
no, you didn't veer. You didn't deviate. Traditional D&D was find a book you liked or a bunch of books you liked, steal everything you could in there, craft together a campaign, and play that way. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. That's the ideal. Mm-hmm. It's why I published all the fiction stories that I published in Dragon, to give people ideas to steal, to use. We called it stealing, we called it lifting, borrowing, whatever. Back when there were no modules, we were desperate to find things to give people ideas.
Okay, Tim, let me ask you a question about back in the day. And I don't know if you can answer this question. I don't know if it was before you or not.
Very little before me.
Very little before. Let me put it this way. I don't know if it was before you left or after you left when the concepts kind of threw in, but how did the idea of a module come about? The idea of putting a game together and throwing it like that.
We were making obscene amounts of money running D&D tournaments at various cons. Mm-hmm. And I say obscene, though I gleefully counted it along. It kept us alive. But we were making large sums of cash. And by running a tournament, we'd round up 12 or 15 DMs from the area that were recommended to us by people we trusted, etc. But it's still very objective. Mm-hmm. This DM thinks that because this group did this thing and this thing and this thing, they ought to go on to the next round. Whereas somebody else's group did the same three things, but I don't think so. Mm-hmm. All right, we said, all right, let's do this. Let's put out an adventure that has all the answers in it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. It's very objective. Did you make it through the first G1? Okay, now you get to go play in G2. Did you make it through G2? Now you can. It was a cash cow that we mastered to rake in huge amounts of money.
Gotcha.
When we're running 196 people in a tournament that they all paid $3 or $4 to get into, and this is 1977.
Yeah,
that's an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
So we did it to have a completely fair metric by which to run tournaments. We'd already knew about Judges Guild. I vetted all the Judges Guild for the first year and a half I was there. I had to go through all their stuff and make sure it didn't break any canon rules. Mm-hmm. If it didn't, I said, okay. And they went. And at the end of the month, Gary goes, they said anything? Yeah, it was pretty good. And, he didn't even want to look at it either. He left that up to me. It didn't break any canon rules. Didn't introduce anything horrendous. And they were putting out some great stuff. Mm-hmm. The Invincible City State of the Overlord is still the best module ever put out. It had adventure after adventure after adventure already in the package. The Sunstone Caverns. Oh, my God, did we have fun with the Sunstone Caverns down in Carbondale? Mm-hmm. Oh, my Lord, we had fun in there. And that was just a little side adventure in that package. So we knew what modules could do. We didn't have the time to do them. When we saw how they sold like gangbusters at that particular convention, we thought we took too many and we went home with none. Well, Brian's eyes kind of glazed over and dollar signs flashed on his corneas. And what do you know? We're in the module business. And it was a good way for guys to get out some creative juice.
Now, Tom from Tabletop Taproom says, look, it's Jim Kirk's fault. He had a planet-sized libido and would shag anything.
Yeah, well, I didn't see any of those people with those little pom-poms on their head.
Yeah. Okay, Tim, question for you that...
All right, I got about 8 more minutes, and I got to go.
Okay, you got 8 minutes? Okay. Okay, we'll keep this brief then. Okay, modules. It was asked the other day on a group, where did the module numbering system come from? G3, G4?
They were the giant.
Okay.
They were the Giants.
So,
I think B were Borderlands.
yep. So basically, if I'm correct, the module ID, like B3, B4, whatever, was directly correlated to the content or the main.
The sequence of the event, the way the adventure was written.
Okay.
The G series was like that specifically. There was another series after that that was first round, second round, third round.
Yep.
All right. After I left, I don't know whether or not or how they continued doing that. I don't know, but I do know that it was an enormous cash cow, and that to get a job at TSR, you had to submit a module.
Really?
Yep. And there's one that got published that only after it was published, a couple of years, and the person had worked there, that somebody put together that the better part of it had been plagiarized out of 5 or 6 other modules.
Oh. Well,
now that raises the question: is there such a thing as plagiarism when we tell people go out and find ideas in books and use them?
Okay, want to answer it?
No, I don't know. I don't believe there is one. Yeah, S series special, D series drow.
Yeah,
I think they also use that coding system to keep track of what the hell they were doing down there in the hotel.
Gotcha. Yeah, because that's kind of like what I do with mine. Is I have actually a coding system that I utilize for my projects, and I have a spreadsheet. And
I don't have enough projects going at any given time that I have to do that.
Yeah, we're getting up there, me and you, Tim, with projects.
Yeah, we got enough. We got to get out of the way first.
Yep. So, well, you only got a couple more minutes. So, Tim, is there anything else? I mean, anyone have any more final questions for Tim? Because he does have to get out. I do now know he does have to. He's got to get out in about 5 minutes. So,
yeah. My wife is patiently waiting over there so we can watch the next episode of.
You know what? I'll tell you what. It is going on. It is 7 minutes till. So why don't we do this? I'm going to go ahead and end this so Tim can go ahead and enjoy his evening with his lovely wife. And Tim, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it a lot. I think that a lot of people get a lot out of this because we touched a subject that not many people touch without a big old fight happening.
Yeah, isn't that dumb?
It is. It's dumb. You can't talk like adults.
Well, we're supposed to be, but we play games. Games by definition are something that children do. We still haven't overcome that early definition of what a game is.
That's right. But I'll tell you what.
And I know they're not. I know.
Well, we had a whole group of people in here tonight. Everyone was adult. Everyone was laughing and having a good time. They took the conversation and the topic the way it was meant. And I just want to say thank you to everybody who came in tonight. Everybody who didn't even sit there and make a comment. Thank you for at least coming in.
Behaving. Exactly. Isn't it nice to have civil discourse amongst adults?
Exactly.
We can't do that. Good night.
So, Tim, thank you very much. Hey, everybody. Tim's serious. When he's got to go, he's got to go. He has a thing with his wife. They watch a show together, and you got to respect that. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and end this too. We're almost at an hour here. Everybody, I'm being very serious when I say this. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm doing these shows because I want to engage all of you. And by the way, just to let you know, the idea for this show came from a viewer of last week's video. They dropped me a PR. It was an email saying, "Hey, Don, why don't you do something on half races?" So I listened to you. So if you guys have any ideas, any comments, if you guys have an idea for a show, either drop a comment down below or drop me an email at info@wizardtowergames.com. Again, info@wizardtowergames.com. I'm happy to talk about things that you want to talk about. And also, if you would, I know everyone says it about their videos, but please, if you haven't, just hit the subscribe button. Help me out here. I'm trying to build my channel up. Every week I notice we're getting more and more engagement. More and more people are coming in. And it helps when people see people subscribe. It really does. It's not a sales pitch. It's a fact. So Michael RPG Grandma, Jim Wampler, Tom and Tammy Veralt, um, everybody else. If I missed you, I apologize. Thank you for coming into my video tonight. Um, Next week, I'll be here at 8 o'clock. Subject is unknown. Y'all can tell me what you want. So when I sign off here, go in, make a comment or something. Tell me what you want to hear. If you guys, if any of you would like to come on my show and talk about a project you're doing, maybe you're doing something for kids, maybe you're doing something at your local library, something like that, something for gaming, I'd love to have you on the show also. This is about everybody, not only just me yapping, but also about other people. And before I sign off, I want to give everybody a word of warning. I learned this the hard way last night. When you're making homemade black raspberry mead, okay, make sure that you take the seeds out first, because the seeds can plug the air valve in your mead, and then in the middle of the night, your jar can explode. 1.5 of honey, all those raspberries, all over the place. Not fun to walk in, not fun to wake up to. Not that I did that last night. Oops. So that's my raspberry mead making thing. So you get value with my channel. Not only do you get to look at my pretty face talk, we get great guys like Jim Wampler on making comments, and Tabletop Tap Room showed up with his beautiful wife Tammy, and Michael Strongload, RPG Grandma, Tim Cash showed by, and you learn about exploding mead. Value, and it's absolutely free. So this is Don with Wizard Tower Games. Hope everybody has a good week. Happy gaming. Tomorrow night, go over to 10 Cars Tavern channel. Check him out. He does a Wednesday night live with Bad Mike from North Texas RPG Con. They're doing a show tomorrow night. Head over to Tom Veralt and Tammy Veralt's channel, the Tabletop Tap Room. Hit a like and subscribe. Tom covers a lot of really cool subjects, a lot of cool stuff. So like his stuff too. And other than that, this is Don, the Exploding Mead Maker. And hope everybody has a good night. I'll talk to you guys later. Good night.